Hey dudes and girl dudes. Welcome back to another episode of the MiraCLE podcast. My name is Kyle and I'm just straight up not having a good time. The Browns suck. Again. And I mean, what else is new, right? But it still sucks. So the Browns lose to the Seahawks 32-28. Guys, this was probably the most frustrating game all season, and it's crazy because I say that almost every game. You know, first it was the Titans. I mean, that was the first game of the season, so it doesn't count. Then, but after that, it was the Rams because of the bad play calling. Then it was the 49ers because we got blown out. Now it's the Seahawks because we absolutely should have won, and there's a lot of reasons why we didn't. Especially when we started the way we started. So, I mean, as soon as the game started, so the game started off with that opening kickoff that we returned, for 60 yards, 70 yards maybe, Dontrell Hilliard. As soon as that happened, I was like, all right, it's going to be one of those games. It's going to be exactly like I thought it would be, where we bounce back from a loss and we just play extremely well in all facets of the game. And then we drove down the field, got a touchdown on the first drive. It was awesome. And then as soon as they came down and scored on their first drive, the Seahawks, I was like, oh, great. So I know they missed the extra point, but still, as soon as they did that, like with ease, I was like, okay, so this is either going to be a shootout or we're going to stop scoring. Now, we didn't stop scoring. We scored our first 3 possessions, but then obviously that was 75. We only scored 8 points the rest of the way. I mean, first three possessions, we score a touchdown, mind you, and then we don't score again until the fourth quarter? Not even a field goal. But anyway, as soon as we got that opening kickoff, we drove down and scored. I was like, all right, cool. I felt really good. I felt comfortable. But then the Seahawks did the exact same thing, minus the kickoff. And I was like, even if we play well, they're going to beat us. Like, the law of averages is going to bite us in the butt, and we're going to end up losing. Because it's one of those games where, like, no matter what happens in the beginning, you know what's going to happen in the end. So, like, if Ohio State is, for example, Ohio State's a good team, or Alabama even, take a better team. If they're down at all at any point in the game, you know it's not going to stay like that. You know they're going to come back and win, and by the end of the game, they will have won. For the Browns, it's quite the opposite, unfortunately, because no matter how much they're up, you know by the end of the game, it's all going to average out and they're going to end up losing, most likely in heartbreak fashion, like they did this time, sort of. I guess not heartbreak fashion, but every loss is a heartbreak for Browns fans. So, but I just knew how it was going to end up, and that made me really sad in the end, knowing that we were going to lose despite how well we were playing in the beginning. So that was a shame. But, and also, to open up the game, I think it was on the first drive. Maybe if it wasn't on the second drive, it was on one of the first 3. OBJ dropped another wide open pass. And he did that multiple times throughout this game. I mean, he had a great stat line. I don't have a stat line in front of me because when do I ever come prepared with stats in front of me? But, I mean, he had over 100 yards, maybe double-digit catches, if not real close. So, I mean, he had a great day, technically. But he could have had an even better day if he could just catch the ball. Like, wide open passes. I mean, he dropped 2 or 3, I think. Maybe. At least, probably. and I might have mentioned it in one of the last few episodes, but he's one of the best receivers in the league. He has extremely reliable hands, normally, at least based on history. And he's just dropping it all of a sudden. Now, granted, some passes aren't perfect. Some passes are maybe a little in front of him, a little too high, a little behind him, whatever. But they're not going to be absolutely perfect throws every single time. Even the best quarterbacks throw it a little behind or a little too high or a little in front sometimes. And their wide receivers still catch it. I mean, if they're catchable balls, they should be caught, regardless of the placement. Now, the percentage of catching that football goes up with better placement, but they're still catchable. So I don't know what's going on with him and his hands or what the deal is, and again, despite how well he played, I'm still focused on all of the easy drops because he goes making these insane catches, like the one on the sideline, he mossed the guy basically. So he can do that, but he can't catch a wide open pass. Just goes right through his hands. I mean, that sucks when your number one receiver, who's a top receiver in the league, can't catch the ball. No, I mean, neither can anyone else. So maybe it's just something in the water at the facility. I don't know. Because Callaway dropped it. Hilliard dropped it, obviously, which led to an interception. Now, at that point, I wasn't so confident that we were going to drive down and win the game anyway, but Dontrell Hilliard dropping a pass that would have picked up a good amount of yards. I don't remember the exact scenario, but I'm pretty sure it was like first and long or second and long maybe. And if he had caught it and ran, he would have picked up most of those yards back. So, I mean, he didn't even, not to say that we would have scored, but he didn't give us a chance. Listen, Baker hasn't played great. We all know that. And I don't know what the deal is. I mean, he has, 12 interceptions maybe? He has a lot is the point. He has way more than he should. He probably almost has as many as he did all of last year. But having receivers who can't catch the ball or receivers who constantly drop passes doesn't help. And actually, okay, I think it's 11 because I remember seeing a stat on Twitter. Because again, I live and die by Twitter information and facts. But I think I saw a tweet that said 7 of his 11 passes have been dropped balls or tipped. Now, it's kind of an ambiguous stat because tipped balls are completely different from dropped balls. Because if they're dropped, there's nothing he can do about it. But if they're tipped, usually maybe he threw a bad pass and the defender tipped it in the air. And then they just had a little tip drill. Yeah, I mean, there's a huge difference between those two things. But the point is, well more than half of his interceptions have not been because of bad throws, necessarily. I mean, I really would like to see a stat on just the drops. It's probably 3, maybe, which means 4 were tipped. And you'd have to see exactly what the scenario behind those 4 tipped passes would be. But the point is that he's not just throwing it straight to the defense. I mean, they're getting dropped or tipped in some type of way. So, while he isn't perfect and he is playing like garbage, it's not helping that no one can catch the ball. And that their inability to catch the ball is leading to interceptions. And the only person who can catch the ball is Jarvis, who we need to start getting the ball to more. Everyone keeps making a point on the team. Everyone on the team, like Baker, Jarvis himself, and Freddie Kitchens, keep saying, we need to get Odell the ball more. I don't know if I agree with that. Because if he's open, sure. But don't try to force him the ball, especially when he's dropping it. And when it's not going to work out. If it's just going to lead to interceptions, I mean, it's hard to know if it's going to lead to an interception. But so that first play, I'm all over the place. I say that because the first interception Baker threw in this game, it was supposed to be a pass to OBJ. Now, I don't think that was Baker's fault. I think if you go back and watch that replay, it was the one where OBJ let that defender get up and then strip the ball from him, which we're obviously going to talk about the refs eventually, but I didn't know that there was a rule that the defender can give himself up on an interception. He still has to be tagged down, right? Right? I mean, I guess the quarterback is down when he gives himself up, but I've never heard of a guy getting an interception giving himself up. Like, I thought he was just waiting to get tagged. So I didn't know that was really a rule, and I've never seen it happen before. I mean, maybe it is a rule. Maybe anyone is allowed to give themselves up. But I'm pretty sure you still have to be tagged down. Unless you're the quarterback sliding. So I don't understand that. And I disagree with it. I mean, I'd have to see the rule or, have clarification on that rule. But I've never seen that before in the NFL, in all my years of watching the NFL. I mean, it's only been not even a decade and a half, I guess. But I've never seen that before, and it made me mad because that was the most brilliant thing I've ever seen anyone do. Like, that was the smartest, highest IQ play I've ever seen made from anybody in a game of football, I think. Maybe that's an exaggeration, and I just can't think of another one off the top of my head, but that was crazy smart to wait for the guy to get up and then strip the ball from him, and it worked. We got the ball back. The referees called him down, though, because he gave himself up. So I don't know about that. But anyway, back to the pass itself. I don't think that was Baker's fault. I think he threw it where it was supposed to go, but one of two things happened, or both. Either A, the receivers ran the wrong routes because it was a pick route, and usually on a pick route, the guy who goes underneath the pick is the one who gets the ball because he's the one who has the separation from the defender. And the guy who goes over the pick route is just the one setting the pick, right? So I mean, I guess not over, but the two receivers cross each other, and whoever goes over is usually the one setting the pick, and whoever goes under is usually the one getting the ball. And OBJ went over. So I don't know if they ran it wrong, and OBJ was supposed to go under, which he didn't. And if that's the design of the play, that's really silly to throw it to the guy who went over the pick. And I guess I think it was I don't remember exactly. I think it was Ricky Seals-Jones maybe who was the other half of that play, the other half of that pick. And he went towards the sideline. He went under the pick into the sideline. I don't exactly remember if he was open, but the point is it clearly looked like a designed play for OBJ because, I mean, it was a quick slant. It was a quick pick play slant. And I think they ran it wrong. And if they didn't run it wrong, then it was potentially pass interference because one of the defenders ran straight into OBJ. Now, I don't know if it was within 5 yards. I haven't actually looked at it in a few days, so I haven't looked at it since I had this thought, really. And I understand there's allowed to be contact within the first 5 yards, but are you allowed to run straight into somebody and completely impede their progress? I guess I don't really know how that rule works either. Because to me, if there's allowed to be 5 yards, or if there's allowed to be contact within 5 yards of the play, why wouldn't you just throw the receiver to the ground every time? Like, why wouldn't you just grab the wide receiver and just shove him down or throw him down or something? I'm really showing my knowledge of. Okay, sorry. I'm really showing my knowledge of some of the major rules in the game of football, or lack of, rather. But to me, I always thought that rule was kind of silly or like needs to be clarified more. But the point is that either they ran the route wrong, I think, or there was pass interference because one of the defenders ran straight into OBJ. Whether it was within 5 yards or not, I still think that's pass interference because he's going for the pass and he just gets completely not decked, but like the guy ran into him. He didn't just like kind of get in his way or maybe like tap him or shove him. I mean, he like ran into him. I mean, OBJ didn't fall over, so I guess it wasn't that hard. But again, it wasn't just, a little brush or, getting in his way. I mean, he hit him. So I don't necessarily agree with that interception. How can I say I don't agree with an interception? I don't think that one was Baker's fault. It was either the receivers or the defenders or both. And then obviously the Dontrell Hilliard pass or interception was not his fault. So really, I only think Baker threw one interception because the one in the end zone to Jarvis Landry was his fault. It was a bad throw in good coverage, and it deserved to get tipped and intercepted. So that was definitely his fault. As always, I am severely dehydrated. So I guess that's it with the receivers. And then now we're going to kind of... Actually, I take it back. Here's what we're going to do, because I'm pretty sure I started to talk about this and then I didn't finish it. The only people who have reliable hands that I know can catch the ball and aren't going to drop it are Jarvis Landry, who's really the only person we should be throwing the ball at this point. Maybe him and Nick Chubb, because Nick Chubb has good hands. And by the way, he had his first fumble of the season, or the first fumble of his career in this past game against the Seahawks. So if you're mad about him fumbling the ball, you shouldn't be. I mean, you can always be mad about someone fumbling the ball, but it's going to happen. And for it to happen after almost a season and a half, that's a pretty good average, I'd say. He doesn't fumble the ball, guys. So as soon as he fumbled the ball that time, I was like, he's kind of due for one. So just a quick little hill I'm going to die on, that I don't care when he fumbles the ball because it doesn't happen. Ever. It just so happened to come in a game with lots of turnovers where we were already... at that point, we weren't playing well, and it kind of looked like we were going to lose. So... But anyway, I keep trying to talk about this Jarvis and Higgins thing, but I keep getting off track. They're the only two who should be catching the ball. And of course, Higgins was active, and he didn't play a single snap. He didn't play a single down. And I kind of noticed it after like the first quarter or two. I was like, has Higgins played at all? Like, I don't remember seeing him on a down. And I'm like, it's not even just that he hasn't gotten the ball yet. I don't even remember seeing him. I usually kind of have an idea of who's in the play on every play, or who's on the field on every play, rather. And I hadn't remembered seeing him. And then, of course, I find out after the game he didn't play a single play. He didn't play a single down. So that kind of made me mad. He was out for way longer than he should have been, probably. And then when he finally is healthy and comes back and is ready to play, he doesn't play? When everyone else is dropping the ball and he's our third best receiver? He could easily be a number 2, maybe even a number 1 receiver on some teams with some really bad receivers. I guess it's hard to find a team where he'd be a number 1, but he's a good receiver. And we didn't play him when everyone's dropping the ball and he has really reliable hands. So I don't understand that coaching decision, and that's going to be a great segue into Freddie Kitchens, because we talk about him every week because he always seems to do something insane in a bad way. Now, I think he coached a decent game, all things considered, especially compared to other games he's coached this season. And some people are mad about the play he challenged. Now we're going to go through that because I don't quite know how I feel about it. It was 4th down and goal, and we had called the play, and then we got a touchdown. Nick Chubb ran it in. Okay, chill, vocal cords. Nick Chubb had ran it in for a touchdown on like a stretch play. Now, they started to blow the whistle a little before they snapped the ball. So it's hard to tell whether or not everybody was really playing. Because, I mean, if everyone kind of stops playing, of course you're going to run it in for a touchdown. But if everyone hears the whistle. But if it's a regular play and everyone's going 100%, there's a chance that might not be a touchdown. So I think it did cost us one. I think it would have been a touchdown. But, I mean, you can't really know for sure when they started to blow the whistle already at that point. It just sucks because we probably would have scored and nothing in that whole sequence would have made a difference. But you can't really know. So, but anyway, so it got blown dead, obviously, because Freddie Kitchens challenged the last play thinking that Jarvis got in the end zone. And so it's kind of like the Greg Williams thing last year where he called a timeout right before we got the other team to jump off sides, if you remember that. And that was kind of a big blunder on Greg Williams' part because it essentially cost us the game. I don't remember the game or the scenario really, but I'm pretty sure we lost because of it. Or we lost anyway, and we wouldn't have if he didn't do that. But anyway, so Freddie Kitchens challenged the play. They blow the play dead on a play. They blow it dead on a play we probably would have scored on. And he challenges the previous play. They don't overturn it. The call stands that he didn't make it into the end zone, but I don't know how he... You can be mad that he challenged the play, but you should be even more mad that they didn't overturn it. Because while he probably shouldn't have challenged it in the first place and it cost us a touchdown, it still should have been overturned in my mind. And I'm not sure how it stood. It should have worked out. We should have gotten lucky that he had challenged the play and that it did in fact work out like I think it should have. Because to me, it was pretty clear that Jarvis was in the end zone and crossed the goal line. I mean, of course there was only one good angle on the play, which sucks, because of course there would be. I think I was a little redundant there. But even with that one angle, yeah, there was a guy in front of the football, but use your head, use common sense. You can, even if there's a guy in front of the football, you can still see where the football is. Even if you don't see the part that's closest to the goal line, you can still see where the football is, and you can still tell, even if you don't see the whole football or the end of it, that it's in the end zone and then that crossed the goal line. Like what? Is it just is the end of the football magically going to like curve upwards and not go into the goal line, not pass it or cross it? I'm getting all shrill. That's how mad I am. It should have gotten overturned. Regardless of the questionable challenge in the first place, it should have been a touchdown. So when that happened, I was like, oh no, are you kidding me? We would have just scored. He challenged the play. And then I saw the replay and I was like, oh, well, it's going to work out, so it doesn't matter. Either way, we get 6 points. But nope. Because the refs are terrible. Which will be a great transition into the whole reffing issue. Which, now that I'm talking about it, I don't really want to talk about it anymore. Because it makes me so mad. Listen, I'm actually going to try to be somewhat brief about this because we're all mad about it. We all know how poorly officiated that game was. On one side, by the way, I don't think the Seahawks got any bad calls. And if they did, it was just regular, law of averages bad calls. Because listen, I get mad at the refs all the time, but they can't be perfect. It's impossible for the referees to be perfect. Okay, they're not always going to make good calls in real time. That's really hard. It's hard to be a referee. Okay, because we see things on replay and we see things in slow motion and we see different angles that they don't see. It's hard. And they're not going to make every call. And they're not going to they're not going to be perfect is the point. But so I try not to kind of put games on refs because everybody gets boned a little bit here and there. And, the Seahawks had their fair share, like, oh, they missed this call, or oh, they shouldn't have called this, whatever. But they didn't have. The Seahawks got some of those. They got their fair share, but they didn't get completely obvious and blatant bad calls over and over and over. If the Browns just got one, like maybe just the Jarvis thing, okay. But the rest of the game is officiated well, fine, whatever. Or I think there was a pass interference somewhere in there that was a bad call. The Jarvis thing was a bad call. So, like, I get it if it's just one. There's going to be really, really bad calls every now and then. But this game, it was just bad call after bad call after bad call, all against the Browns. Or, to be fair, a missed call. They didn't call something that should have been called. So it's not like, the Browns had a few bad calls, the Seahawks had a few bad calls. That's just the game of football, human error. No, the Seahawks had a few normal bad calls like every game because the refs aren't perfect. The Browns had really, really awful calls multiple times throughout that game. A lot of times. Over and over and over. It was completely, the officiating was completely one-sided. And I don't think anybody who actually watched that entire game from start to finish can disagree. I know people and I've seen people tweet who aren't Browns fans or who don't really watch the Browns say that they've agreed with me. They've said that it was a horribly officiated game and the refs screwed up and that something needs to be done about it. Obviously you can start with the blindside block on Jarvis, which I really don't like that rule. I understand that that's about player safety, but if it's a clean block and it's not to the head, it's not in the back, it's not to the neck, I don't see the problem with it. Getting rid of those is making the game softer for no reason to me. I don't like that that's a rule in the first place. And so as soon as they called it, I was like, this is going to be BS. I'm going to watch the replay and it's going to be stupid. And I don't think it's going to be a penalty. And then I watched the replay and it actually wasn't a penalty at all. It wasn't even just like, oh, with the new rules, that's a penalty. But I don't think it is. This was not a penalty even with the new rules, obviously. I don't know why I'm getting so worked up about it. You guys know. But it starts there. And then, there were a few awful calls before that. There were a lot of awful ones since. And you can't place the whole game on the referees when the Browns kind of played bad and they kind of, settled down and plateaued. Even came back down, I guess, if you're thinking of it like a graph. But I would say the first half was an issue of turnovers because we threw, I think most of our turnovers, I think we had 4 turnovers and 3 of them were in the first half. So the first half was turnovers. But even at the end of the first half, we were only down by what? I think we were up, actually. We might have been up at the end of the first half by 2 points. And we were still in the game at the very least. So even if we weren't up, we were in the game. And despite all the turnovers in the first half. The second half, we played much better, I think. Maybe not much better because we scored all of our points in the first half. But we kind of got out of that whole turnover thing and we kind of started to pick it back up. And then the second half was just a story of the refs being horrible and not knowing how to do their job. So I'd say half the game was put on us playing poorly and the other half was the game being officiated like dog poop. And now I can't say that it's, Cleveland against the world because the refs had a really bad week this entire week. Or they had a really bad weekend of football in general, I should say. I was talking to a buddy who's from Atlanta. He's a Falcons fan, and he was talking about how poorly officiated that game was. And I actually watched part of that game too, because I usually have like a few games, like maybe 2 or 3 games up in the background. Kind of like a red zone thing for me. I have a few games in the background to watch when the Browns game is at a commercial. And the Cardinals-Falcons game was one of them. And I remember there being a few bad calls. But he said that it was really bad. And then you obviously have the Lions-Packers game, which was also bad and not good. Now, that game wasn't as poorly officiated from start to finish as the Browns game was, I don't think. But there were some clearly awful calls that cost the Lions the game, essentially. Or at the very least, completely took them out of it. Because at the end of the game, they called that illegal hands to the face penalty on the Lions defensive player. Now, even if they didn't call that penalty, the Packers, I think on one of them, the Packers were going to punt. I think I'm thinking of the second one. I don't know if I remember the first one. So maybe it was the second one. I know on one of them it was a third down, and if it wasn't called, the Packers were going to have to punt. Shoot, I wish I remembered more about the game. But one of them was a big call on third down, and then I think the other one was at the end. It was at the end of the game, under 2 minutes, and while the Packers probably would have gotten a field goal to take the lead in that game, the Lions would have at least gotten it back with time to score. So I guess I don't remember it too well, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was. I think it was a third down play that they called it on, and instead of a punt, it led to a touchdown. And then the other one was with under 2 minutes left to go in the game, and it would have given the Lions the ball back with a chance to score. But then the Packers just hit a game-winning field goal. So, those are game-changing calls. It doesn't mean that the Lions would have won, but there's a good chance they would have, or they at least would have had the chance to come back and win, or come down the field. While it's not, a clear outcome-changing call, it's a game-changing call, and it completely screwed the Lions over. And I saw something that said, right now, because of that loss, the Lions are in last place in the division. But if they had won that game, they would have been first place in the division. And so one bad call can be the difference between first and last place in the division. And that was crazy to see, because it's true. That was a crazy stat that I saw, especially when that division is as good as it is. You got to win every game you can, and I think the Lions did get screwed. So it was just a really bad week for officiating in general. God knows the NFL's not going to do anything about it except send letters to the team saying, "Oh yeah, we messed up, sorry." And then it's going to happen again the next week. They're not going to do anything. I don't think necessarily that NFL referees should get fined. Because then you'd have to clarify the rules on that. Like, what do they get fined for? Because if they can't get fined for every wrong call they make or every missed call they don't make, because that's going to happen a lot. They can't get fined for that. If they can somehow be clear on some type of rule for fining the referees for making bad game-changing calls or missed calls, that's one thing. I just feel like it would be kind of arbitrary, and it would be really hard to, have a set standard for that. and like I said, be clear about it and define it really well. But if they could, I think that'd be decent. Again, I don't think they should get fined for every bad call or missed call, but they should get fined somehow for game-changing calls that they get wrong. Maybe be suspended, bring in new referees. I mean, the NFL basically has the same group of referees, the same like pot of referees for decades. I mean, obviously you want experienced veteran referees in there, so you don't want a lot of turnover in that area. But some of these groups of referees are awful. Some of the referees in general are awful. You got to get new ones at some point. You have to. Especially when the ones that you have now aren't doing their job. So while they maybe shouldn't get fined, maybe suspended, or at least get new people, I mean, something has to change because it's making games hard to watch. Obviously, if I'm a Browns fan, I'm angry about it. If I'm a Falcons fan, I'm angry about the officiating. If I'm a Lions fan, I'm angry about it. But I know people who aren't Browns fans who are angry about the officiating in that game. I know people who aren't Falcons fans who are angry about the officiating in that game. I'm not a Lions or a Packers fan, and I was angry about the officiating in that game because it cost a team a win. Potentially. And again, it's literally the difference between first and last place in the division as an example. It's the difference between a Super Bowl and a top 10 pick. You know? Something has to change. I guess I don't necessarily know what, but the NFL has to do something. They can't just keep sitting around doing nothing and letting it happen and sending teams letters saying, oops, sorry, our bad, and then not doing anything about it. Because who does that help? I mean, sure, it's nice to acknowledge that they're not completely siding with the referees. Like, oh yeah, it's nice to have it acknowledged that, oh yeah, this was a bad call, or this should have been called. I mean, it makes me feel a little better, but I wish it could have happened in the game. I wish they could have gotten it right during the game. Even if it doesn't benefit us, I would much rather have, because obviously sometimes you're going to be on the positive end of a bad call or missed call, and then other times you're going to be on the negative end. I would think that most people would rather have games that are officiated really well consistently than have a game where it's officiated poorly even if your team is on the receiving end, or on the positive end rather. Like, even if the Browns are getting all these calls and they're going in the Browns' favor, and not necessarily all of the calls, but if like maybe 75% of them are going the Browns' way and the other 25 aren't, in terms of like bad calls, I'd rather have a well officiated game that is even on both sides and is consistent and is correct than have the Browns be on the positive end of most bad calls. I just want to see I want to see the officials do their job and do it right. And if they're doing it right, then you have no one to blame except yourself. So if the Browns are getting penalties, then that's their fault. That's something that they have to work on and get better at, and something that is under their control. They can't control the referees being bad at their jobs. There's nothing they can do about that. So I would rather see good officials, ones that can do their job and do it well and do it consistently. Because as an NFL fan, it's really hard to watch games. I mean, I watched a lot of football, not just Browns. I watch all the Monday night games. I watch a lot of games that the Browns aren't in, just as a fan of the game and certain players as well. And it's really annoying and frustrating to watch games that are officiated this poorly. And it makes me not want to watch. And I'm sure it makes a lot of other people not want to watch. So while I doubt anyone's going to stop watching their own team because of bad referees, you're going to lose viewers. Your average number of viewers on each game is going to go down because you're going to have people stop watching games that aren't their team. So, again, I don't really know what needs. I I said I was going to try to be brief about the whole referee situation, but I clearly wasn't because that was the longest segment so far this entire podcast, I think. But anyway, I don't even know what I was just about to say. But while I don't know what needs to be done necessarily, something has to be done, like now, because this has been going. The referees have been particularly bad this year and also last year. Last year it was pretty bad. This year it's already really bad. I don't remember it. I mean, other than the lockout season, I don't remember it really being that bad. I mean, NFL referees aren't great and, bad calls happen. But last year and this year in particular have been really, really bad. So they got to do something. But whatever, another game is in the past, another game in the books. Currently, the Browns are tied for second place in the division with the Steelers, who started out 0-4, by the way. I think at least 0-3. I think they started out 0-3. So somehow we're tied with them for second place now because our division sucks. The Bengals haven't won a game, so they're in last, and the Ravens are 4-2. So that kind of messes up the division. One, because the Ravens are playing well, and because we're not. So hopefully, I say it every week, but I say it every week that like the Browns will figure it out, and this will be, their coming out game for the season, the game that kind of flips the switch and turns it around for them. I say it every week, but it's hard to say that anymore because I said that for the Rams. I said it for the Ravens, which turned out to be right. Actually, I don't think I did say it for the Rams. I think we would lose that game. So I said it for the Ravens, the 49ers, and this game against the Seahawks, I think. I think I had the Browns winning in all three of those games and kind of saying it would turn their season around, which I thought the Ravens game would, but obviously it didn't. And I find it hard to continue saying that, and I find it hard to say it anymore, especially when you're going up against the Patriots. Now, we do have a bye week this week, which is good. It gives us time to prepare and figure things out. But even with a bye week, I still don't think we're going to beat the Patriots. They're the Patriots. They're 6-0, and they're always pretty much the best team in the league. There's a reason they've been to 3 straight Super Bowls and that they have 6 wins under Brady and Belichick. So, I don't think we'll win that game, even with the bye week. But it's possible. Now, it is in Foxborough, so it's on the road. And I do think it's possible that we win the game, considering we got the bye, we lost 2 in a row. I think we might be able to finally turn things around for the season and kind of flip that switch and start playing really well. While all those are possible, I think there's like a 20% chance it happens. So I'm not counting us out completely. There is a chance that all of that happens and that we do win, but I just don't think it's likely. So I think the Patriots win that game. Shoot, I don't know. 30-10. We might even be lucky to get a score that close. So 30-10. Before the Around the League segment, another news, we traded Austin Corbett to the Los Angeles Rams. The Los Angeles Rams made moves. I'll get into that in a second. But we traded Austin Corbett, who technically, I guess, was our center. I kind of thought he was like a center guard tackle hybrid. I thought he could do anything, even though he hasn't played ever. But that's not the point. We traded him to the Rams for a 2021 draft pick. I think it was a 5th rounder. So, while he never, think of it like this. There's 2 ways to think of it. You can think of it like, he was, we picked him 33rd overall in the draft, which is the first pick of the 2nd round, and we got a 5th rounder for him. So we don't exactly get to reset and start over because we get a pick 3 rounds after we took him. But, on the other hand, he never played. I feel like he was hurt kind of a lot, and he wasn't good. You're not going to hit on every single draft pick. Your draft picks aren't all going to be good. We've been fortunate enough to have most of them be good with John Dorsey, sort of. But you can't win them all. And so this one we obviously didn't win, and we're getting a 5th round out of it to try again. I mean, it's John Dorsey, so we'll probably end up being able to get someone at least decent, or at least better than Corbett, that plays one down in the 5th round of the 2021 draft. But we won't see the results of that for another year and a half. But we traded him. And then you also have the Trent Williams trade talk. There's a lot of talk about it. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm actually going to go on Twitter now and see if there were any updates about it. I don't think it's going to happen. I think there's a lot of talk about it and a lot of speculation about it, but I don't actually think that we will pull it off. And I'm fine either way. If we do, okay, I don't see anything with Trent Williams, so that's good. Maybe it's later today. Maybe it doesn't happen at all. We'll see. But if we do get him, great. We get a really, really, really good offensive tackle, and we upgrade our offensive line significantly. I mean, we're addressing a major need. Now, we have 2 bad tackles, and we'll be getting rid of one of them. We'll be fixing one of... How do I want to say this? We have 2 really bad tackles, and we'll be getting one really good one. So that still doesn't address, both of them. We still have one bad tackle. Well, I think we'll replace Greg Robinson, because I'm pretty sure Trent Williams is a left tackle, and I think Chris Hubbard is the better of the 2 between him and Greg Robinson. So, point is, we'll be addressing a major need, and our offensive line will get significantly better, exponentially better almost. And then you have pretty much one oddball instead of 2. Because I think our centers and guards have been playing well. Eric Kush has been playing well. Obviously, J.C. Treader and Joel Bitonio are the best 2 on that offensive line. We really only need to worry about Hubbard and Robinson. And so if we bring in Williams, we get rid of one of those guys. We only have one oddball, one guy we have to worry about. And Chris Hubbard, as much as I have issues with him, as many penalties as he commits, is not good as he is. He's like average, I guess. So he's fine. And the point is that our line gets a lot better. It takes care of a huge issue, and it would be awesome. But if we don't get him, I'm also okay with that, because he's 31, which, is kind of young for an offensive lineman. So it's not like he's like super old, but you have to put into perspective, the fact that Joe Thomas retired at 32, maybe 33. So if you think of it like that, then he is kind of old. And anything over 30 is kind of old for the NFL in general, considering the short shelf life of most positions and most players. So if we don't get him, it's not a huge... Plus, I'm pretty sure he's really expensive, and we'd have to take on whatever his contract is, or maybe even renegotiate it with him. So I'm kind of on both sides. If we get him, great. I'm not going to complain about getting a better offensive line, a better player at any position, especially one that's really good and one of the top 5 tackles in the league, maybe, who's been to 7 straight Pro Bowls. But if we don't get him, whatever. Yeah, I don't think we will. But we'll see how the rest of the day goes. On to our rather short, it seems, around the league segment. Like I said, you have the Rams making moves. They made moves yesterday. They got rid of Marcus Peters. They traded him to the Ravens, which sucks because now he's obviously in our division. And while I don't think he's a great cornerback, he gets a lot of interceptions. And he's good, So it doesn't help when although they traded a linebacker for him, Kenny Young. I don't know much about Kenny Young, but if you're they're getting a cornerback and they're getting rid of a linebacker who are about the same skill level. So maybe their defense doesn't necessarily improve. It's kind of about opportunity cost there. Maybe the next best option at linebacker is better than what they're losing at cornerback to put Marcus Peters in there. Or I think I said that wrong. My understanding of economics and opportunity cost isn't all that great. Their next best linebacker is better than the next best corner that they had that is being replaced by Marcus Peters. So I guess I said that right. I think. Not the point. The point is they got rid of linebacker Kenny Young. They brought in cornerback Marcus Peters, and I'm not sure how much it'll help or hurt their defense, but I know that Marcus Peters is not terrible. He's pretty good, and I liked him on Kansas City, but he kind of seems to have dropped off a little bit since then. But anyway, so they did that. Then they traded for Austin Corbett, so they got an offensive lineman who I don't know much about the Rams' offensive line, so I don't know if Corbett will start. I doubt it, but now they have some depth at the very least. And then in their biggest splash, they got Jalen freaking Ramsey. Now, this comes because Aqib Talib is on IR, and I think he might be out for the rest of the season. So they needed a cornerback desperately, and they got Jalen Ramsey, the best cornerback in the league, in my opinion. And I think that's most people's opinions, that Jalen Ramsey is the best cornerback in the league. There's some other really, really good ones, don't get me wrong, but I don't even think it's particularly close to say that he's the best one right now. And they got him, so that's going to help their defense out a lot. And it's kind of about time because he wasn't playing for the Jaguars, I don't think. I mean, he was taking sick days and baby days and whatever. So it's probably a good move for the Jags. I know they didn't want to trade him, but what are you going to do if he's not playing, right? I mean, you still have to pay him. You're still without a good cornerback. You got to do something. So I think the Rams got him and gave the Jaguars 2 first-round picks and a second-round pick, maybe. Let me go back and check this real quick, because this is probably a stat that is important to know for sure. Okay, we're back because that was kind of far down my Twitter feed. So he was traded to the Rams for 2 first-round picks in 2020 and 2021, so 1 each, and then a 4th-round pick in 2021. I mean, as good as Jalen Ramsey is, that's a pretty good haul for the Jags. I mean, I thought it was going to be like 1 first-rounder and then other supplemental picks like in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, or 5th round. But to get 2 first-round picks and a supplemental in the 4th round, that's pretty dang good. So I mean, that might be an even trade, I think. I don't know. I mean, Jalen Ramsey's young. He's a generational talent. He's the best corner in the league. So, but 2 first-rounders seems like a lot for most people. I don't know. Especially when you give them another pick as well. So not just 2 first-rounders, but 2 first-rounders and any other pick, which in this case is a 4th round. I don't know. I think that's a pretty even trade. But the Jaguars ended up benefiting because he wasn't playing, so they got 3 really good picks. They got 3 picks, basically, 2 in the 1st round for somebody who wasn't playing on their team. So they came out. I mean, they did what they had to do. It's unfortunate, but life goes on. The Rams have Jalen Ramsey, and the Jaguars have a bunch of picks. Not like they were winning anything anyway. So I wanted to talk about real fast just the Super Bowl contenders this year. So here are my top 4 picks for Super Bowl, 2 in each division. The Patriots, and this is in order. So number 1 in the AFC, the Patriots. As much as I hate seeing them win, as much as everyone hates seeing them win, they're still a great team, and there's a good chance they go back to the Super Bowl. Maybe I'll do top 6. Maybe I'll do top 4 from each division, because now I'm thinking of some other really good teams. Okay, so maybe not in any particular order, but for the AFC, you have the Patriots, the Chiefs. I feel like that's really it in the AFC. The Texans. The Texans look really good. And I guess, is my 4th pick going to have to be the Ravens? I'm trying to go through all the divisions. Because I can't think of a fourth good team in the AFC who I think could go to the Super Bowl. You have... Okay, so let's just go through this. You have no one in the AFC North is good. Maybe the Ravens. So, AFC East, AFC South. No. Yeah, I mean, I guess the Ravens are going to have to be my fourth team. So, AFC, you have Patriots, Chiefs, Texans, and Ravens. And then in the NFC, you have, and this probably isn't in any particular order, but you have the 49ers, who are still undefeated and look really good. I mean, they look incredible. The Packers, who also look great and are a good team, and they finally have a good defense to supplement Aaron Rodgers. The Saints, who even without Drew Brees, they're playing awesome football. They're playing really well, so they're going to play even better when Drew Brees gets back. And then I need one more team for the NFC as well. And the NFC has a lot of good teams, I feel like, so that might be a little more difficult. It's probably going to have... I guess the Rams. No, the Seahawks. What am I thinking? The Seahawks. The Seahawks are a great team, obviously, and if you have Russell Wilson on your team, then you're always a Super Bowl contender. Especially when, I mean, the Seahawks are what? 4-2? 5-1? Is it going to tell me their record? No. So let's look it up while I keep talking. But Russell Wilson's having an MVP season, and the Seahawks they're 5-1. Okay, so that's what I thought. So I think they would be the fourth team. So to sum that up, my top 8 Super Bowl contenders, 4 from each conference, are Patriots, Chiefs. From the AFC, the Patriots, Chiefs, Texans, and Ravens. And then from the NFC, I have the 49ers, Packers, Saints, and Seahawks. So there's your 8. All right, let's wrap this up a little bit. We'll go over my week 6 scores. I went 7-7 in the 14 games that there were. I'm going down the list of all the games. I got most of the first half right. I got a bunch right in a row, and then I got a bunch wrong in a row. But it's crazy because I got a lot of the upsets right. So I thought the Dolphins would beat the Redskins. That didn't happen, so that was probably a dumb pick, because why would the Dolphins ever win? And I got the Browns pick wrong, obviously, because I thought they would win. But I got the Vikings over the Eagles, and I picked the Texans over the Chiefs, which is probably the biggest one. So I got some of the bigger ones right, but maybe not some of the obvious ones right. So that's kind of how my record evened out. It's nothing crazy. You have the Texans beating the Chiefs 31-24. Jets beating the Cowboys 24-22. Got that one wrong. I think everybody did. And then the Steelers beating the Chargers 24-17. That was kind of a butt kicking, really. Minus the last quarter, I guess, when the Chargers started to come back. But no one thought that would happen, especially with a third string quarterback. So that was terrible to see from a Browns fan standpoint, and just as an AFC North standpoint, because again, like I said, now we're tied for second with them, so that kind of sucks. But okay, let's just go over these week 7 picks and call it a day. So for Thursday Night Football, tomorrow, October 17th, you got the Chiefs at Broncos. Chiefs will win that game. Then on Sunday, October 20th, you have, starting at 1 o'clock, you have Raiders at Packers. Packers will win that game. Rams at Falcons. Rams. 49ers at Redskins. 49ers. I feel like a lot of these are kind of easy, at least so far. Easy picks. So 49ers beat the Redskins. Texans at Colts. Texans. Vikings at Lions. Lions. Jaguars at Bengals. Do the Bengals have a win yet this year? I don't think they do, and I think I already said that too. But no, they're 0-6. So Redskins at Bengals, I'll take not the Redskins. The Jaguars at Bengals, I'll take the Jags. Cardinals at Giants. I will take the Giants. And I think Saquon might be coming back. Even if he doesn't, I'll take the Giants in that game. Dolphins at Bills. Bills. Chargers at Titans. I will take... Ooh, that's tough. Because both of those teams are kind of, oddballs. They could win or lose. Oh, and the Chargers at Titans start the 4 o'clock games. So 4 o'clock games start with Chargers at Titans. I will take the Chargers. Ravens at Seahawks. I'll take the Seahawks. Saints at Bears. I'll take the Saints. Then on Sunday Night Football, 8:20, you have Eagles at Cowboys. I'll take... That's tough. That'll be a good game. For the sake of just picking somebody and not taking 60 seconds to do it, I will take the Cowboys. I really was thinking hard about that one. I'll take the Cowboys. But okay, Cowboys. We'll just leave it at that. And then Monday Night Football, 8:15, you have Patriots at Jets. Patriots, obviously, because the Jets actually got their first win because they got Sam Darnold back. They beat the Cowboys. But they're not going to beat the Patriots. So that wraps it up. I'm done here for now. Thank God the Browns have a bye week because we desperately need one, and I'm sick of seeing us lose. So a nice little break from them would be good for me. But maybe, who knows? Maybe next week we'll be able to beat the Patriots. That would be awesome. Give them their first loss of the season, unless the Jets somehow do, which I don't think is possible. But anything can happen in the NFL. But as always, thank you guys for listening, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace.